Welcome back to the Elwin YouTube channel, where you'll be taking a plunge into our unique philosophy for life and design. In today's video, we're jumping right into the mind of Vincent van Gogh and his use of complementary colors. But before you chalk good old Vince to being just an eccentric artist, who by the way happens to own some of the most famous paintings in the entirety of art history, you'd first have to know what brought him to his fame and drove his passion to such great heights. Unfortunately, he never got to witness the success and impact he had as a post-impressionist painter. So who was Vincent van Gogh? Formerly named Vincent Willem van Gogh, born on March 30 of 1853 in the city of Brabant, Netherlands, to a Dutch Protestant minister, Theodorus van Gogh and mother Anna Carbentus. He had a rather conventional household that, much to his parents' chagrin, grew into a deeply tumultuous life for everyone involved. More on that later. During the good times, which were pretty much only the first few years of his life, he had garnered a deep appreciation for nature's lively colors during his daily walks with his family. After a couple of unhappy years of schooling up to early adolescence, he decided to quit school altogether. His main exposure to the arts surprisingly didn't come from early childhood, as is the case for a vast majority of renowned painters. In fact, he got his first glimpses sometime around his late teens, during his job at the international art dealer run by his own uncle. Having found little joy in the few years he worked at the art dealer, he felt a strong pull towards spiritual aspirations. He had a big heart, no doubt about it, wanting to find purpose in life by the way of preaching the Bible to the sick, the shut-ins, the families of poor coal miners. He gave away many physical possessions and personal comforts in order to establish a church community, but sadly to no avail. Throughout his journey, he had faithful correspondences going back and forth with his little brother Theo. Having been Vincent's greatest encourager and supporter, both emotionally and financially, Theo noticed that the little sketches he received along with his letters held quite a bit of substance. At Theo's loving advice, Vincent decided it was time to serve God in a different way, this time with his natural gift as an artist, even if it didn't involve his initial plans to preach. In keeping with his new approach, he eagerly moved to Brussels in 1880 to learn proper sketching techniques while networking with seasoned artists. Having adopted quite the nomadic lifestyle, he went back to Brabant in 1881 to focus on his art while gaining support from his family, and of course his confidant Theo. Let's remember now, these were especially tough times for the artist, both financially and socially speaking. To choose to become an artist was to willingly become the underdog of society. To add salt to the wound, and much to his parents' disappointment, he fell in love with his widowed cousin, who wanted absolutely nothing to do with him. To cover the trauma he experienced as a result of this rejection, he went on a relationship that was just filled with sorrow and heartache, which ultimately led him to paint The Woman on the Peat Moor, a rather monochromatic piece with dark undertones. From the depths of hardship, the despair of love, the struggle of self-acceptance, and what experts now diagnose as unmedicated mental illnesses, we see a great deal of innovation and creativity that were birthed out of Van Gogh's life. These primary years as an official artist were filled with dark undertones and muted colors in all of his paintings, with dark olive and multiple shades of brown taking up most of his themes. Some of these include famous pieces like The Potato Eaters, The Disgust Thrower, and Head of a Skeleton with a Burning Cigarette. Van Gogh was, indeed, both a creative genius and maverick within his field of work. He knew he couldn't fit into the traditional mold of his contemporaries. Unsurprisingly, he ended up moving yet again, and this time to Arles, in the south of France. This is where his own personal renaissance as a painter took place, as the vivid and rich colors of the city overtook his every human sense. Raw emotion and authenticity have always been the most suitable descriptors of his paintings. And aside from the themes and subject matters he used, his perspective of complementary colors tells a story far better than any other mediums. Now, for a little lesson on complementary colors. Many of you already know that they're pairs of two colors sitting opposite from each other on the color wheel. But an interesting fact is that when both hues are mixed together, they almost cancel each other out by creating a washed-out earthy or gray-toned color. However, when they are placed exactly side by side, they display the highest contrast imaginable. Many people tend to frown upon complementary colors because they might think of the look being too tacky, too busy, or simply outdated. But when used wisely and sparingly, depending on the art piece or interior design we're looking at, This method has a potential to create a luxurious and a one-of-a-kind statement. And who knew, out of all the geniuses of the arts, Vincent van Gogh was responsible for the widespreading of this technique. Having educated himself in most aspects of art through observation and reading, he learned complementary colors create such bold contrasts that instead of competing for attention, they intensify and draw out the maximum beauty and potential of one another. For example, a wide array of Van Gogh's paintings is heavily characterized by cobalt blue, such as in his famous masterpiece Starry Night. In this dreamily somber but hopeful scene, we see his methodical use of gold to emphasize the gleaming stars against a blue nocturnal backdrop. Yellow and blue are well-known complementary colors and are consistently used in some of the most renowned logos and brands. As for the household masterpiece titled Sunflowers, well, once upon a time, it hung majestically on the walls of London's National Gallery, until two so-called oil protesters desecrated the painting with cans of tomato soup, apparently making the statement that they're anti-oil. Remember that time? Yeah, that didn't go over too well. Furthermore, in the case of his famous painting titled The Night Cafe, we have the perfect example of how he simultaneously contrasted the interior space with vermilion, which is a derivation of red-orange, along with a green background. Such complementary hues depict a wide range of Van Gogh's emotions. As many of us know by now, Van Gogh has a troubled mind and equally suffered from debilitating physical illness. Without a doubt, he strategically used complementary colors to visually share feelings of happiness, doubt, serenity, anguish, and disillusionment. In the same way, we believe that knowledge of complementary hues is important when designing anything that requires color. Take, for instance, a family room displaying high-end decor. Just because it costs a certain amount or is from one of the most prestigious brands, it doesn't necessarily mean there's visual fluidity or coherence. Using complementary colors the right way can truly create an imagery of opposites colliding into one beautiful masterpiece. Many times, it's simply because the colors are clashing instead of working together. And little did we realize that that's the reason why certain colors don't look good together. That's why using large pieces of furniture that complement one another is an absolutely essential step. And this simple step might just be the missing piece in many interior spaces. That je ne sais quoi factor, that oomph, that missing link that ties all the loose ends. Ladies and gentlemen, your answer might just be complementary colors. But aren't neutral tones the most user-friendly options? Glad you didn't ask, and we'll answer regardless. Yes, indeed, neutrals can do wonders for any canvas, literally and figuratively, as they allow more wiggle room for even the novice artist and designer. But bold colors can work just as beautifully if the surrounding elements complement instead of compete with one another. So much of our color knowledge and ability to enjoy said colors are thanks to the old masters like Vincent van Gogh. As Confucius said, better a diamond with a flaw than a pebble without. I mean, who doesn't have a flaw? Or is poor Vincent alone? And yet, under much hardship and disillusionment until the very end of his life, he was able to become the forefather of complementary colors. It was, in a special way, his endeavor to keep hope alive within his inner self. And for that, the world is a much better and more colorful place. Let me ask you now, did you at one point believe in the negative myths mentioned earlier about complementary hues? Would you use them now? And in what setting or scenario would you pair them up? Let us know in the comment section below. We hope you loved this video and gained a new appreciation for Van Gogh, as well as for complementary colors. You know the drill. Click like and subscribe to our channel to learn more about life and design, and feel free to share our video.